Hey there, it's Lenny McGill with the GlockStore Performance and Custom Shop right here in San Diego, California. And today I want to talk to you about the most popular item we sell. Now you may be thinking it's the pyramid trigger or the double diamond connector or even our double diamond barrels. But no, the most popular thing we sell is the super heavy Tungsten Guide Rod. And there's a reason it's popular. And there's a reason that so many people come back and not only buy one, but buy more and more for every Glock they have, because this really does reduce recoil. That is the key. It reduces recoil to the point where you're able to shoot tighter groups faster, which means you can shoot faster and more accurately. And what else could be better, okay? So, let me tell you, when I go to the shows, I tell people, I say, by the way, have you changed the guide rod in your Glock? And they say, well, no. I say, well, you know you have a plastic guide rod. And most of them say, well, really? Is it? Well, no. And I say, yeah, it's plastic. Here, this is the plastic guide rod. You know, it's plastic, it bends, and they do break. And people go, well, gee. I say, here, feel the weight of that. So they put it in their hand, they go, wow. Then I say, hey, our tungsten guide rod is solid, it's significantly heavier, it doesn't bend, it doesn't break. Here, feel the weight of this. So the guys would go, wow, oh my gosh, well, that's incredible. And you know what, it is incredible because the tungsten guide rod really is heavier. It's significantly heavier. And because of that, you have what I call a dead weight under the barrel and under the slide. So as the gun goes into recoil, the action of the recoil is really where most of the muzzle flip and muzzle jump and felt recoil in your hand is. The action of the slide is what I should say, really, because it's the weight of the slide and the motion of the slide that you feel the gun jumping with you, or on you, should I say. And because of that, it has a tendency to throw off your accuracy because the gun's jumping all over the place. Now, you can incorporate grip stance to overcome a lot of that, but the tungsten guide rod helps it even more. And to prove that, let me go ahead and show you a couple things that I have put together here for us today. This is a little scale. Now, you're not going to be able to see this because it's digital readout, but guarantee me, a guarantee that I'm going to tell you the truth here. This plastic guide rod for a Glock 17 weighs 10.4 grams, okay? And the tungsten guide rod weighs 45.2 grams. And that's a significant difference. Basically, tungsten guide rod is 4 times the weight, 4 times plus the weight of the plastic guide rod. And because of that, when you shoot your gun, there is less jump. And I'll also tell you this. There's a couple other things that I've observed. One, it kind of feels better in your hand. It kind of balances out the overall weight distribution. Additionally, because it's a dead weight and it's not moving, and again, like I said, that most of that action is caused by the slide, because of that, the gun just does not jump around as much. And the other thing that I've noticed is because the rod itself does not bend and absorb some of the recoil, you have a less likely chance to limp wrist. Now, a lot of you say, you know, well, I don't limp wrist, and I agree, you probably don't. But every once in a while, people will shoot the Glock, and it won't cycle properly. And that's because the guide rod bends a little bit and absorbs some of that recoil. And if you have a limp wrist, you also absorb some of that recoil, and the gun does not cycle properly. With the tungsten guide rod, it virtually eliminates that because now it's on a stable platform and it doesn't bend a little bit. All right, so I think there's a lot of reasons to put a tungsten guide rod into your gun, and like I said, it is proven to help people shoot faster and more accurately, and that's without a doubt. Now, let me show you a couple other things that are really neat about this. We do make them, of course, for all the Glocks. It's that important. If you're going to do anything to your Glock to make it better, the tungsten guide rod is where I would start. The tungsten guide rod is available in Gen 3 versions. Of course, we make them for the 17 and the 22 and the 31, and then of course the 34 and 35. They're all captured like this. Oh, they come to you assembled, pre-assembled, ready to go. They just drop in. We use the factory weight springs, and we also have different spring tensions. And a lot of people will ask, well, why would you use different spring tensions? So let's talk about that for just a second before I go too much further. The Glock 17 uses a 17-pound spring, just by coincidence, okay? So it just happened to be 17 pounds. And when Glock put the gun together, they felt that the 17-pound spring will give every ammo out there the best opportunity to cycle in the Glock. So if the spring's too heavy and the ammo is too light, it won't cycle properly. And if the spring is too light and the ammo is heavy, it may tear apart the frame a little bit. So there's a couple little things, to think about. So if you shoot a whole bunch and there's a lot of recoil because the spring's so light, it may adversely affect the frame. May, okay, that's a maybe, okay. We don't really know that for sure, but I would say that that's a pretty good thing to think about. The spring weights that we have are 11, 13, 15, 17 is the factory for the Glock 17 and the Glock 22, Gen 3s, and then we have 20 and 22. Many of our competition shooters, who reload especially, will use a lighter power spring. Okay, so keep that in mind. So you could start an 11 or a 13 or a 15, and it will be less motion, or so less pressure, it takes less strength to rack the slide. So now think about why else you would use a lighter power spring. If you use a compensated or ported barrel, you would also want to have a lighter spring. Okay, so the ported barrels and the compensated barrels, gases escape from the barrel. Hence, there's less pressure buildup in the barrel and less pressure to make the slide react. Because of that, because there's less pressure, we find it's better to go to a lighter spring. I hope you follow me on that. So if you have a compensated or ported barrel, you may want to take your spring down from the 17 into the 13 or the 11. Now, if you run a compensator on the outside with a threaded barrel, you're going to notice that, especially in 9mm, the gun may not cycle with the standard 17-pound spring. We find that all the time. People call, hey, I put a threaded barrel and a compensator on there, and it's not cycling. What's wrong? Well, the spring weight is not light enough to cycle the slide with a compensator, because the compensator does the same thing. It reduces the gas pressure in the barrel because gases escape. Hence, you don't have as much action back on the slide. All right? So compensated barrels, either compensated in the holes or when you screw a compensator on the back, on the top of it, or ported barrels will require typically a lighter spring, especially if you are a competition shooter who is reloading your own ammo, because the reloads you get if you try to go to factory specs, your chances are not going to have as much pressure as store-bought ammo, or name brand ammo, should I say. And a lot of competition shooters also will like to put their loads down lower so they actually have less recoil. All right? And that makes a lot of sense. All that stuff is kind of all right in this wheelhouse of why you would take a lighter spring. Now, why would you want a heavier spring? Well, if you're shooting very aggressive loads, self-defense loads, or you're reloading your own hot ammo, then you would probably want to go up in spring so you don't feel as much of that rear road pressure, and it actually kind of slows down the gun a little bit, slows down the slide. So the heavier power springs have a reason too. And not many people buy a heavier spring, but we do get people who buy a heavier spring. Now, especially those of you who are shooting 10mm and even 40 cal sometimes want to have a heavier spring, because those rounds are very snappy. Now, the 10mm round, as many of you know, is a very snappy round. It has a lot of pressure, a lot of velocity, a lot of action here. If you're shooting factory self-defense 10mm ammo, I would say go up to the 20-pound spring. It'll still cycle fine. It'll soften up some of that action and make the gun a little bit easier to control. A lot of hunters who are using the 10 mil, especially guys in Alaska who carry a 10 mil because that's the round that can stop a bear, not a 45 and not a 9mm, not a 40 caliber. It's the 10 mil is the preferred gun in Alaska when you're in the bush. They want to go to the 20 or 22 pound spring because they're using self-defense ammo as well. And they've got that gun they're carrying on their side and when they're fishing or hiking or whatever. So, you know, there's a reason to get a heavier pound spring as well. And those spring pressures or spring weights are available, like I said, for the different guns. Now, keep in mind the Glock 17 and 23, the Gen 3 guns, use a different spring. Their factory weight is going to be 18 pounds. We also have a 15 pound available. And then we have a 20 and 22 as well. So those for the 23, 19, and 32 are the spring weights for the mid-size guns. The 2021 also use the 17-pound spring, and the same velocities or same spring weights are available. 11, 13, 15, 17 is factory weight for the 2021. And we have a 20-pound spring and a 22-pound spring. So lots of numbers there floating around. But the most significant thing you can take away from this part of the conversation is that the tungsten rod is 4 times the weight of the plastic guide rod. It does not bend. It does not break. You can get more shots out of this than you can this. Glock recommends you change the factory guide rod every 3,000 to 5,000 rounds. I know a lot of guys who've shot 10 and 20,000 rounds and it still works. Keep that in mind too. But they recommend for functionality that you have a new spring every 3,000 to 5,000 rounds. We feel we can get 5,000 to 10,000 rounds out of these with no problem. And I've got a lot of shooters who've done that as well. Like I said, it comes to you captured, ready to drop into your gun. And it's very simple. Let me go ahead and show you how it works. So we go ahead and clear that gun, boom. Of course, the disassembly procedure is the same. We're going to go and pull the gun back just a little, slide back just a little bit, pull down on the slide lock or slide release or slide or takedown lever, should I say, and off comes the top. It's very similar, okay. Guide rod is right here, so we just pull the guide rod out. Plastic one comes out, pop the tungsten rod in, which I think this is the right one. We'll put the nose of the rod into the nose ring of the slide, and then just take your thumb and push it forward a little bit. And you're going to set it down on the second notch, the half moon notch of the barrel. So I'll go ahead and take this out again and show you there's a half moon notch right there. So it's that lower notch. Now, while we're talking about that, oftentimes people will call us and say, hey, you know, when I pull my gun apart, it's not sitting on that notch. It's sitting above here like so. Let me see if I can duplicate that. It's sitting up here like this. It's not all the way down there. It's kind of half on, half off. That's very normal, okay? As soon as it gets into the gun, it settles itself and it goes. So oftentimes people call and think there's something wrong or broken, even with their factory plastic one. When you take the factory plastic one out, sometimes it's sitting up high like so. Again, getting close there, you can see that. And they think, oh, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. It'll find itself when it starts shooting. That's not gonna go anywhere. So it's just a normal thing, and it happens all the time. So nothing wrong with that. Okay, so that's the Gen 3 tungsten guide rods. And like I said, we make them for all the Glocks. So I have also a Gen 4 here for you. There's our Gen 4 package. Super heavy tungsten guide rod for Gen 4s. We make them for the mini Glocks or the subcompacts, the 26, 27, 29, 30, of course, and then the Gen 5s. Now, something different about the Gen 5s is they found that the rod that worked for the Gen 5 22 actually did not work for the 17 because there was just, the spring was too heavy. So when they first released the Gen 4 guns, if you remember this, about 4 years ago maybe, they had a lot of cycling problems. And people were freaking out. Oh my gosh, the Gen 4s are bad. They weren't bad. They just miscalculated the spring pressure on their guide rod. And Glock kind of scratched their head and said, oops, I guess we made a mistake there. We cannot use the same rod, guide rod, for a 22 in a Glock 17 or a 40 caliber into a 9mm. So they just redesigned that 17 or 9mm spring, and this is now our version, our tungsten version. So we've got a tungsten guide rod here for our Gen 4 gun. And let me go ahead and pull a Gen 5, or excuse me, a Gen 4 gun factory out. So this is a Gen 4 Glock 17. This is a Glock 17 tungsten. I'm going to go ahead and do the same disassembly procedure. And again, this is the Gen 4, same thing. You have to make sure the trigger's in the fired position. We're going to bring our hand up over top here. I'm going to access the slide lock or takedown lever on both sides with my hand. Pull the slide back just a little bit. Pull down. Push forward. Off comes the piece, just like that. Now, this one seems to be sitting okay. And now there's the factory plastic one. So let me take it out just like so. I'll go ahead and turn my scale back on. I'm going to drop this down. Now watch this. I'm going to go ahead and weigh this guy. And it says 19.7 grams. Our tungsten rod, same thing, Glock 17. 47.8. So basically 60% heavier. 1.5 times heavier than that, than the plastic. Again, you know, it's really just simple math. The weight of the guide rod helps reduce the felt recoil. To put our tungsten guide rod in, it's the same procedure for the factory. You actually find the hole, the nose ring they call that, okay, and just push forward with your thumb just a little bit, just to push it down. It'll snap into place into the bottom half moon shaped notch in the barrel. Put the slide back on and boom. You know what? It just feels a little bit better too. There's a little bit more weight. Now it's not too much weight to where it's uncomfortable. It's just enough that it feels pretty good. So I actually like it a lot. I think it's pretty crazy. Now let me tell you something about these Gen 5 guide rods, or Gen 4, Gen 5. We make them for both, okay? They both basically are dual spring guide rods in the sense that they have an outer spring and an inner spring. Okay, they come to you assembled, pre-captured, just like this. You just drop it in. We make them available with different color heads. So if you look down here, you'll see that we have all kinds of different colors available. And we even do custom colors too. So if you're making a custom build, we can make it any color you want. Right off the shelf, I know we have the silver, and I know we have the black, and I know we have the gold. That's our gold right there. So those are very, very popular. Of course, the red is brand new, and they're new and they're available. The FDE and the blue. And they all go to really help customize your gun. And what they do basically is they stick out of the nose ring and give you just a neat look. So here's the red one. Red's been very popular. And you can see what that looks like when you basically pop it into your gun. So if you have other red accents, that's a neat little feature. Of course, same thing with gold. If you have gold accents, there you go. Kind of looks cool. And that's, you know, part of the fun about a Glock is you can do so many custom things. You know, the blue has actually been very popular. A lot of guys, you know, like blue. Of course, I like blue a lot too. It's one of my favorite colors. And it goes well with black. Black and blue is just a good combination. So, you know, really it's all about your custom choice. These are on our website, the different colors. When you go to the website, you'll see the different options that are available. So that's for the Gen 4, Gen 5, and the subcompact Glocks have the dual spring. Now, many people ask, well, I like the fact that I've got a Gen 4 gun, but I want to shoot a Gen 3 guide rod. Well, you can do that. We sell what we call our guide rod adapter. It's a Gen 4 guide rod adapter that allows you to shoot a Gen 4 spring. A Gen 3 spring. Why would you shoot a Gen 3 spring? Because you can shoot an 11-pound spring in here. These dual spring guide rods do not come in different spring weights. There's really one standard weight that's factory. It shoots all the different ammo. But if you want to shoot lighter loads in your Gen 4 or your Gen 5 gun, we have what we call our guide rod adapter that will make this nose ring the same size as the Gen 3. This being the Gen 4, this being the Gen 3. And you see how the nose ring, which is this piece right here, what we're talking about, that is what our adapter makes smaller, so it will accept the single spring Gen 3 guide rod. Lots of fun stuff here, I'm telling you. So you can really customize this, this experience and figure out what works best for you. Then finally, here's the last thing we have. This is my competition gun. And we have another guide rod we make for competition shooters in the 34, 35, even now the 40 and 41, the extended length. And it's our extended length guide rod. So check that out. That guide rod is uncaptured. See how much longer it is than the standard guide rod. And I will show you that right here. This is the guide rod that comes with it. And the spring that is not captured. Now what's really cool about this is we also sell a spring pack that has all the spring weights. So if you've got a 34 or 35, and it should be the longer one, otherwise it's going to stick out. If you've got a 34, 35, you're able to easily change your springs. Just pop a new spring in. It comes to you with the standard factory 17-pound spring. Because it's longer, it has more weight. Remember, the factory plastic captured guide rod that you get is 10 grams. This guy is 54 grams. It's 5 times the weight, whereas the capture one was 4 times the weight. So the extra weight helps reduce recoil even more. And I've got footage to prove it. This one, the only disadvantage to this one is that it takes a little bit more effort to install. It's kind of like a 1911. Now, here's a good example of what I just told you about how sometimes your guide rod will be jumping up a little bit. It's not seated all the way down. I can seat it by pushing it down. But sometimes when they come out, they just sit up a little bit. Don't worry about that. It just happens. I mean, it's not like it's broken. Now, this one, like I said, is a little bit more difficult to take out. I dare not want to do it on camera, but I will, because here I am. Here I am. I want to show you. So basically what you do is you come in here and you just thumb this on. Now be careful because this spring is live, and that means it wants to fly across the room, right? Okay, so you want to capture that with your own hand. Whoop, there it comes. And there is my Gen 4 guide rod. And I've shot my extended guide rod for my Gen 3. I've shot the heck out of this thing. I mean, I have literally, 20, 30,000 rounds through here, and it's still working great. I haven't changed the spring much. Now, I do run a lighter spring for myself because I want it to be easier to rack, and I just feel that I have a better cadence shooting when I run a 13-pound spring. I shoot just standard factory ammo, factory red box, federal practice ammo, when I'm shooting competition. And that's typically all I do with this gun. But I just feel like I have a better cadence with the 13-pound spring. So you may want to think of that. Now here, to put this back in, it's not easy, okay, but it's not hard either. It just takes a little bit of effort. So you got to get your spring loaded into the spot there, right? Okay, and then we got to go ahead and feed this guy in here. And so far, so good. And sometimes it takes a little bit of effort. There, I got it. Okay, just like that. Okay, that wasn't that bad. So basically now what you're going to see, here's the Tungsten Guide Rod sticking out all the way. Now compare that with the standard Glock 17 Guide Rod, which is this guy right here, and it would go right to there. So that's your factory. This is the extended one, comes all the way out. Now that, again, just provides a little bit more weight, that provides a little bit more recoil reduction, and limits muzzle flip even more, even better. So if you're going to do anything to your Glock that will help the performance, this is probably one of the most important things to do. I will tell you that it is the most satisfying when people come back to the show after maybe 2 or 3 months after they bought a guide rod, and they come up and they buy 2 more. Or I'm at the show, and this happens all the time, it's kind of fun, And I'm doing my pitch. I say, hey, have you changed the guide rod on your Glock? And the guy says, yeah, I didn't know it was plastic. Well, here, feel the weight of this one, you know? So I give it to him, and he goes, oh, yeah. And I say, here's the tungsten rod. And as we're going through that, the guy's doing this, and the guy next to him says, oh, yeah, I got one of those. They're great. And the guy goes, really? Oh, yeah. And they have a conversation, and this guy ends up buying one. And, you know, then, like I said, it's almost invariably when I have, you know, multiple people in front of me and I'm doing the demo, hey, feel this one, feel this one. Some guy back there says, oh yeah, I got one of those last month. That was great. I love that thing. You know, so they almost sell themselves. And that's kind of what I'm trying to tell you. Once you understand the concept of the Tungsten Guide Rod, you're going to want to have one. Now, we've got a lot of choices. If you have any questions, call the guys in the front there. They're going to definitely help you out. I'm here sometimes too, so if you really want to talk to me, hey, you know what? I'll take your call. I enjoy talking about these guide rods. I enjoy selling the guide rods, and I enjoy the fact that you're one of our customers. I'm Lenny McGill. This is the GlockStore Performance and Custom Shop. Thank you for watching. If you're ever in San Diego and you want to test a guide rod, you know, you say to yourself, well, let me go down there and test fire 6 shots with this one, with the plastic one, and 6 shots with this one. I'll put you to that test because I know you will find and shoot better groups faster with the Tungsten Guide Rod. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.